Stay! A loud shout suddenly rang out, and the man in the green robe swooped down like a hawk, his overwhelming spiritual energy erupting. A metallic-like glow flickered across his body, giving off an invincible aura. With a single punch, the air in front of him exploded, the deep rumbling sound of the explosion echoing through the sky. The sudden action of the man in the green robe immediately attracted countless gazes. His eyes narrowed coldly in response. This man in the green robe was named Qinghu, and he hailed from one of the most powerful forces on the North Song continent. While this force wasn't as strong as the top-tier powers like the three great merchant guilds or the West Pole Temple, it was still far from weak. At this moment, Qinghu's strength was no less than the previous Wutong. His full-powered strike created an aura that could send shivers down anyone's spine. People were left wondering whether Mu Chen could break through Qinghu's powerful blockade. Everyone knew that as long as Mu Chen showed even the slightest weakness in the face of Qinghu's interception, his progress would come to an end here. The other powerful individuals on this platform would never allow someone slightly weaker than them to surpass them and ascend to the second level to undergo the perfect sacred spirit baptism. On the high second-layer platform, 7 figures stood above everyone else, watching this scene. Xia Yuran, her jade-like hand unconsciously clenched, understood that if Mu Chen wished to reach this level, he would have to display immense deterrence. The other powerful individuals on the third-layer platform were just as strong as Qinghu. If Mu Chen couldn't intimidate them, then it was unlikely he would make it. Heh. Lu Ying let out a soft, cold laugh, her eyes fixated on Mu Chen with a sinister, amused expression. Boom. Under the watchful eyes of many, Qinghu let out a low growl, and a terrifying punch, carrying formidable spiritual energy, shot toward Mu Chen. That fierce strike was enough to kill a late heaven-reaching stage expert. Clearly, Qinghu intended to strike with lethal force, showing no mercy whatsoever. The massive punch grew rapidly in Mu Chen's pupils as a cold, determined look surged within him, like a tidal wave crashing in his chest. Black flame-like spiritual energy erupted from Mu Chen's body. His skin crackled with dark lightning, his body rising slightly, and 2 thunder runes suddenly appeared on his chest. 2-rune thunder body. As Mu Chen activated his thunder body, the air around him was instantly torn apart by the immense power he radiated. The ground beneath him cracked open with deep fissures. A tidal force, impossible to describe, surged within his body, like an ocean. Without hesitation, Mu Chen's expression remained calm, his robes fluttering in the wind, the sound of his clothes rustling in the air. He stepped forward, black lightning swirling around him as he threw a punch. The wind of his punch roared like thunder. He didn't back down. Boom. The black lightning on his fist surged violently, and in the next instant, the 2 fists collided mid-air with tremendous force. Bang! It was like the collision of meteors. Invisible shockwaves spread through the air from their clash. The space within 100 feet around them exploded, creating a vacuum-like zone. Qinghu's face suddenly changed. The power emanating from Mu Chen's fist was overwhelming, like the thunder from the 9 heavens. In an extremely brutal manner, it tore through his punch's wind, violently rushing into his body, causing his spiritual defense to collapse in an instant. Pfft! A mouthful of blood spurted from Qinghu's mouth. His originally fierce form trembled violently, and his body was sent flying backward. He crashed into the ground, each step leaving deep cracks in the hard surface. After stumbling back dozens of steps, he finally stabilized himself. On the 9 heavenly steps, everything seemed to fall silent for a moment. Many powerful individuals changed their expressions. They turned their gazes toward the young figure, their previous look of indifference replaced by one of solemnity. Although they had heard about Mu Chen severing Wu Tong's arm, hearing was different from seeing. But now, witnessing this scene, it was clear. On the second-layer platform, Xia Yuran was filled with surprise upon witnessing the scene, her beautiful eyes shining with joy, but at the same time, a sense of alarm stirred within her. The previous punch from Mu Chen had been too overwhelming. Even someone as strong as Qinghu had been forced back by a single blow. Such power could not possibly come from someone at the early heaven-reaching stage. At this moment, Xia Yuran finally understood why Mu Chen, with only the strength of the early heaven-reaching stage, had been chosen as the representative of Northern Heaven's Spiritual Academy for the Sacred Spirit Mountain. This young man was indeed extraordinary. Meanwhile, Lu Ying, standing to one side, narrowed his eyes slightly, his gaze dark and cold. On the third layer, the forceful retreat of Qing, who caused him to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth. He fixed his eyes on Mu Chen, taking 2 steps back. Though he said nothing, his actions clearly indicated that he would no longer interfere. "Are there any others who wish to take action?" Mu Chen asked, his voice calm as he scanned the area. The young man stood amidst the gathering of strong fighters, his expression unruffled. His tall, slender figure and handsome face stood out even more amidst the chaotic spiritual energy, drawing the eyes of all who watched. The expressions of the other strong fighters on this layer subtly shifted. The fear and wariness in their gazes toward Mu Chen were evident. Their powers were on par with Qing Hu, but seeing Qing Hu being sent flying by a single punch, it was clear that Mu Chen's combat strength had already surpassed theirs. Although they were shocked that someone at the early heaven-reaching stage could accomplish this, they had no choice but to accept the reality. And so, everyone fell silent. Mu Chen smiled slightly. The power of his 2-rune thunder body was more overwhelming than he had expected. This kind of deterrent effect was clearly perfect. "Thank you." Mu Chen looked up at the towering second-layer platform above, the place within this baptism grounds that countless strong warriors envied. To stand there, one had to be among the elite of the younger generation on the North Tsang continent. It was clear that anyone who hoped to stand firm and earn the right to undergo the sacred spirit baptism would have to go through an earth-shattering battle. But Mu Chen would not be intimidated. A sharp glint flashed in the blackness of his eyes. With a sudden step, he shot into the air, resembling a great rock soaring through the sky. Amidst the countless gazes that followed him, he made his way toward the second layer. "Someone else wants to climb to the second layer?" Cries of astonishment echoed through the tumultuous spiritual energy that filled the air. Outside Sacred Spirit Mountain, countless leaders of major forces hovered in midair, their eyes fixed on the crack in the space ahead, where a massive spiritual energy light screen stood. The scene within was the 9 heavenly steps, but it was only the second layer. Clearly, the powerful leaders weren't interested in the minor conflicts below. Only the battles on the highest layer would capture their attention. Only those who triumphed there would earn the final sacred spirit baptism. Headmaster Tai Tsang stood with his hands behind his back, his expression unreadable as he gazed at the figures within the light screen. 7 figures, all among the top of the younger generation on the North Tsang continent, stood out in the image. However, Mu Chen was not among them. Around him, there were subtle glances, particularly from those of Dragon Demon Palace. The Black Dragon Supreme's lips curled into a faint, mocking smile. That kid named Mu Chen couldn't even qualify to ascend the 9 heavenly steps? It seemed he'd overestimated him. This time, Northern Heaven's Spiritual Academy would surely lose face. The Black Dragon Supreme sneered at Ta Tsang, then casually surveyed the surrounding world. His eyes narrowed, a chilling expression flickering in them. "Ta Tsang, this time, I will make sure you can't leave, and Northern Heaven's Spiritual Academy will be shattered." Ta Tsang, however, paid no heed to the looks directed at him, his gaze fixed entirely on the spiritual energy light screen. Behind Ta Tsang, Luo Li and Ling Shi also watched the screen closely. Ling Shi furrowed her brows slightly and murmured, "What's going on?" With Mu Chen's strength, there's no way he wouldn't have the qualifications to reach the top. "Don't worry, Ling Shi. He'll show up," Luo Li said with a gentle smile. She clearly had full confidence in Mu Chen. Ling Shi nodded, then her gaze shifted to the light screen, where a slight disturbance was beginning to take place. Meanwhile, at Northern Heaven's Spiritual Academy, above the Spirit Hall, a massive spiritual energy light screen appeared. Around the spiritual energy screen, countless students from Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy were hovering in midair, forming a sea of people as dark as ink, stretching to the horizon. In the front, several of the Academy's top students, including Shun Songxing, Li Xiantong, Su Xian, and Crane Demon, were all intently gazing at the enormous screen. Within the screen, 7 figures stood silently, exuding a suffocating, oppressive aura. All the students from Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy wore solemn expressions. Could these be the top figures of the younger generation from the North Tsang continent? Truly impressive. But where is Mu Chen? Why hasn't he appeared yet? As some students' eyes filled with confusion and concern, suddenly, there was movement within the screen, and all gazes immediately shifted toward it. In the screen, the sea of clouds spread across the sky was suddenly torn apart. A sharp, wind-cutting sound rang out, and in the next instant, a flash of light, as fast as lightning, shot forth. The figure dove downward, and in that instant, an indescribable sharpness erupted from the familiar young figure. Boom! His body crashed heavily onto the second-layer platform of the 9 heavenly steps. At this moment, the young man, resembling an eagle or a falcon, appeared dazzlingly bright. Roar! At that moment, the entire Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy erupted. Cheers resounded deafeningly, filling the sky and earth. Mu Chen had finally appeared. Second layer of the 9 heavenly steps. When Mu Chen's figure landed on the platform under the gaze of countless eyes, the 7 figures on the platform also turned their attention to him, each displaying different expressions. Some surprised, some cold, some curious, and some indifferent. Mu Chen raised his head to glance at the platform, which was under the scrutiny of countless eyes. With him and Xia Yuran, there were only 7 figures. But he understood that these 7 were probably the true top figures among the younger generation of the North Tsang continent. Although they hadn't fought yet, he could already sense that each of them was far stronger than Wu Tong and the Qinghu who had previously tried to stop him. These people were the real obstacles. Of course, there was still the biggest obstacle. Mu Chen's gaze turned to the seemingly ordinary figure of Emo Xingtian, who appeared unimpressive at first glance. Yet, Emo Xingtian's lifeless eyes were locked onto him, devoid of any emotional fluctuation or killing intent. He looked like a soulless corpse, sending a chilling sensation down one's spine. However, Mu Chen knew that Emo Xingtian was probably the most troublesome one. With Mu Chen's arrival, the already silent and oppressive atmosphere on the platform became even heavier. Xia Yuran quietly stepped forward, grabbed Mu Chen's arm, and moved him to the side, preventing him from becoming the focal point of everyone's attention. She also pulled him away from the suffocating atmosphere. "Why did you just arrive?" Xia Yuran whispered. "I was delayed by some injuries earlier." Mu Chen smiled slightly, and then took out the wind-controlling pearl, handing it back to Xia Yuran. "Thank you, Senior Xia." Xia Yuran took the wind-controlling pearl and smiled brightly. "Not bad. You're quite capable, actually making it this far. Looks like I underestimated you." Mu Chen glanced at the oppressive platform and asked, "What's going on here?" The group was standing still, neither advancing nor taking action. The atmosphere was stifling. They stood like wooden stakes, staring at each other with wide eyes. This scene left Mu Chen somewhat confused. The sacred spirit baptism. It will descend from there? Xia Yuran pointed to the very top of the 9 heavenly steps. There, a massive orb of light hovered, radiating endless brilliance. There was a faint, immense, and terrifying aura emanating from it. From there? Mu Chen asked, slightly stunned. The higher you stand on the 9 heavenly steps, the stronger the baptism power you can absorb. Those below can only absorb the residual baptism power left by those above. Xia Yuran smiled and continued. But the real question is, who actually has the qualification to stand on the first layer? The baptism power isn't limitless. Mu Chen finally realized that before his arrival, there were already 7 people here. However, it was clearly impossible for all 7 to stand on the first layer, as that would make the first and second layers indistinguishable. It was likely that none of them would want to waste their limited baptism power by dividing it among 7 people. In such a situation, if someone with overwhelming strength were to emerge, they could simply overpower the others and stand alone on the first layer, enjoying the purest baptism power without any contention. This would have solved the dilemma. However, the problem now was that no one present had the strength to dominate the group. Even someone as strong as Emo Xingtian probably couldn't claim to defeat 6 others and ascend to the top. So, Before the baptism power appeared, they were stuck in a dilemma. Now, with Mu Chen suddenly appearing, the situation became even harder to resolve. Mu Chen's expression shifted slightly, and then he noticed Lu Ying casting a cold, piercing gaze in his direction. This second layer is already full. I'm afraid there's no room for any more people. Lu Ying's indifferent voice broke the tense silence. Immediately, everyone on the second layer turned their attention to Mu Chen. Clearly, they noticed the pointed implication in Lu Ying's words. However, none of them felt displeasure about this. After all, they had no fondness for Mu Chen, who had suddenly appeared, attempting to share the baptism power with them. They all knew each other's strength, so they were at least cautious around one another. But Mu Chen, who suddenly emerged with only early heaven-reaching stage cultivation, though his combat prowess was indeed impressive, even overcoming someone like Qing Hu was an anomaly. Hadn't Qing Hu and the others obediently stayed on the third layer, not daring to interfere with the others? In this place, hierarchy was clear. Your strength determined the layer you stood on. One could only stand on the layer that matched their strength and accept whatever leftover baptism power was left. Whether or not one could complete the baptism depended entirely on their fate. Lu Ying. Xun'er's brows rose when she saw Lu Ying speak, knowing he would target Mu Chen. Yuan, you should know the rules here. No one wants an extra person splitting the baptism power. To stand here, one must at least have the approval of most of the people, Lu Ying said with a slight smile, his eyes fixed on Mu Chen. Now, tell me, who here would recognize his right to stand here? Yuan, Lu Ying does have a point. If anyone could come here and take the baptism power, it would cause chaos. Countless people would rush up without care, and that would create a lot of trouble, Dong Yuan of Tianyuan Chamber of Commerce added with a faint smile. The others looked on coldly, but it was clear they shared the same thoughts. They didn't want an additional person taking the baptism power that rightfully belonged to them. Among the group, Emo Xingtian remained impassive. His dead-eyed gaze flicked over Mu Chen. His mission was to kill Mu Chen and retrieve the treasure of the Dragon Demon Palace. But if Mu Chen were to fall to Lu Ying and be killed, he would save some trouble. He didn't want to personally handle such a matter. It wasn't worth his effort. Mu Chen's handsome face remained calm. He wasn't angered by Lu Ying's attack, as he had expected it. If the others truly didn't take any action against him standing there, he would begin to suspect something was wrong. Yuan gritted her teeth in anger. Yuan, given our engagement, I would advise you not to get involved any further. Otherwise, you may provoke the crowd's anger and be excluded as well. If that happens, your trip to Sacred Spirit Mountain will have been for nothing, Lu Ying said with a faint smile. Then come and try. Yuan's eyes flared with anger as she stepped forward, but Mu Chen raised his hand to stop her. Senior Yuan, thank you, but I can't let a girl fight my battles for me. Mu Chen smiled gently at Yuan. Lu Ying's actions reflected the views of several top young figures from North Song continent. If Yuan interfered, she might drag him down, and Mu Chen certainly didn't want that. This is a bit surprising. I thought you'd have a girl step forward again, Lu Ying remarked with a sarcastic smile, his tone carrying a hint of mockery. His words alluded to an event a few days ago at the Sacred Spirit Pavilion, when Emo Xingtian had tried to deal with Mu Chen, and it was a girl who had stepped forward to help Mu Chen fend him off. Otherwise, he would likely have been a cold, lifeless corpse by now. However, Mu Chen merely smiled faintly at his mockery and took a slow step forward. His gaze swept over a few others who were lazily watching, and he asked, "What qualifications are needed to stand here and enjoy the power of the baptism?" Upon hearing Mu Chen's straightforward response, the sarcasm on Lu Ying's face deepened. He touched his nose and smiled coldly. It's simple. Just prove you have the qualifications to stand here. How do I prove it? Mu Chen asked with a smile, his black eyes gleaming with a cold, almost winter-like chill that gradually spread over the area. Lu Ying stepped forward, eventually stopping just in front of Mu Chen. He raised a finger and gave a slight motion, his smile turning increasingly sinister. His indifferent voice, carrying a faint killing intent, echoed across the second layer platform. Just survive my hand. Tilting his head slightly, he added, "Let me give you some advice. I don't enjoy sparring with people. If we fight, it will either be death or crippling. If you can't handle that kind of price." He pointed toward the bottom of the 9 heavenly steps, his cold voice resounding. "Then you'd better leave on your own. This isn't a place you should be." Boom. A surge of overwhelming spiritual power exploded in that instant, and those on the platform watched in stunned silence as Mu Chen's figure suddenly appeared in front of Lu Ying, like a phantom. With a single kick carrying immense spiritual force, the air itself seemed to explode in the wake of his strike. Mu Chen's kick was like a whip, mercilessly aimed at Lu Ying's head. The kick landed with a sharp crack. Bang! The impact reverberated as Lu Ying raised his arm to block, sending shockwaves through the ground beneath them, cracking it open. Lu Ying's face slowly lifted from behind the arm he used to block, his once smiling expression now turning increasingly vicious. His cold, murderous voice spread across the second layer platform. "Heh, that was a quick choice, but you're really courting death." Second layer of the 9 heavenly steps. Bang! As Mu Chen's kick, imbued with immense spiritual energy, was swung toward Lu Ying, the crowd on the platform was momentarily stunned. They hadn't expected Mu Chen to be so direct. Without a single word of hesitation, he just attacked. "Interesting little brat." Dong Yuan smiled faintly, watching with great interest as the two exchanged blows. He was curious to see what kind of courage this early heaven-reaching stage youth had to challenge Lu Ying like this. Xia Yuran clenched her jade-like hand, her eyes filled with concern. Although Mu Chen had previously intimidated the others from the lower layer, Lu Ying was no Qing Hu. This guy, though detestable, had successfully survived the physical body tribulation and was on a whole other level compared to the likes of Wu Tong or Qing Hu. Still, concern aside, there was nothing she could do at this moment. If Mu Chen wanted to stand his ground here and prove he had the qualifications to share the baptism power with the others, he would have to show true strength. If she insisted on stepping in to protect him, it would only make her a target, and she wouldn't be able to help him in any meaningful way. "Mu Chen, it's up to you now," Xia Yuran thought to herself, biting her lip in silence. Down below, many eyes were also watching. Mu Chen's bold ascent had left a strong impression on several people, but they knew that whether he could truly secure a position on the second layer would depend on this upcoming fight. If he could intimidate Lu Ying, then he would truly have the right to contest for the baptism power with the others. If not, he would be forced to withdraw from the second layer. And in the midst of all the eyes watching, Lu Ying's smile grew even more sinister. As soon as the words left his mouth, his expression turned icy cold. The arm that had blocked Mu Chen's leg strike suddenly bent, and his palm slid down like an eagle's claw. His fingertips glowed with a chilling gleam, summoning a sharp wind that fiercely slashed down at Mu Chen's leg. Whoosh! Lu Ying's claw wind swept through the air with a sharp tearing sound. It left faint traces in the void, as if the air itself was being shredded by his fingertip wind. Mu Chen's eyes narrowed slightly. His figure leaped abruptly, and with a sudden movement, he slapped the air with his palm. His body spun midair, creating leg shadows so powerful they could shatter mountains. The overwhelming wind force carried the speed of lightning as it hurtled toward Lu Ying with devastating force. Boom! Boom! Lu Ying's claw wind howled, showing no intention of retreating. He struck back violently, blocking all of Mu Chen's leg shadows. In an instant, his claws transformed into fists, and one powerful punch slammed into the soul of a leg shadow. Boom! A visible ripple of force spread outward, and Mu Chen's body shuddered as he was sent flying 10 meters through the air. Just as Mu Chen's body landed, Lu Ying's foot stomped down hard, causing the ground to shatter. Mu Chen, however, had already turned into a blur of motion, speeding off once more. Boom! In that instant, black lightning erupted from Mu Chen's body. 2 streaks of thunder lines appeared across his chest, and it felt as though his flesh was burning. The immense power surged within him like a flood, exploding out in all directions. He swung his fist without any flare, only the vast, dark spiritual energy swirling like a tide, along with the formidable power born of his blood boiling. This punch caused the air in front of him to explode, and the ground beneath his feet cracked open with a deep fissure. The sheer might of the punch made the third layer's Qing Hu's heart skip a beat. Mu Chen's attack was clearly far fiercer than before. Furthermore, the guy was actually planning to go toe-to-toe with Lu Ying. The latter had already surpassed the physical body tribulation, an ordeal so tough that even practitioners of the body-forging divine art could scarcely compare. You don't know your limits. Let me show you what someone who has passed the physical body tribulation is truly capable of. Lu Ying sneered. He clenched both hands tightly, and his body suddenly burst with a dark light, appearing as though forged from steel. He took a step forward, his arm trembling like a spear, and his fist shot out like thunder, smashing directly into Mu Chen's punch. Bang! The two fists collided, sending shockwaves rippling through the earth beneath them, shattering the hard stone slabs into dust. The ferocious spiritual energy waves swept outward, and Mu Chen's body trembled as he was forced back several dozen steps. Each step turned the ground beneath him into powder. After stumbling for a while, he finally regained his footing. His handsome face had turned unusually solemn. Compared to Mu Chen, Lu Ying was much better off. He only took a few steps back, but his face remained grim. His eyes darkened, knowing full well that while his punch had sent Mu Chen stumbling, it hadn't actually caused any damage. Originally, this punch should have been enough to break the bones of someone in the late heaven-reaching stage. Mu Chen's strength was indeed incredibly formidable. He was not much weaker than someone who had passed the physical body tribulation. It seemed that this guy's body-forging divine art was no ordinary technique. Mu Chen rubbed his hand, his gaze cold as he fixed Lu Ying with a sharp stare. So this is the strength of someone who has passed the physical body tribulation? It's on par with my two-rune thunder body. No wonder ordinary heaven-reaching stage cultivators are no match for them. This kind of power would crush them. If it weren't for my breakthrough in the thunder god body, I would have been overwhelmed in a contest of strength. Your strength is indeed noteworthy. Just now, you must have relied on it to push back Qing Hu, right? Lu Ying's eyes were indifferent as he looked at Mu Chen, sneering. But do you really think I only rely on physical strength to fight? Boom. A vast torrent of spiritual energy suddenly surged from Lu Ying's body. The sky seemed to churn with it, an overwhelming presence that caused many onlookers to pale. This was the power of someone who had surpassed the physical body tribulation. Even their spiritual energy was far more potent than those in the late heaven-reaching stage. Whoosh! The massive spiritual energy surged, and Lu Ying didn't give Mu Chen much time to react. His figure shot forward like a streak of light. Roar! A dragon shadow swept beneath Mu Chen's feet, and in the next instant, his figure vanished with a whoosh. Puff! Puff! The gray-black shadows, formed from an extremely powerful surge of spiritual energy, brutally pierced through the spot where Mu Chen had stood earlier, leaving deep, bottomless craters on the ground. A missed strike. Lu Ying's expression remained unchanged as he waved his sleeve, and countless gray-black shadows surged upwards from his body, filling the sky like a rain of arrows. I wonder how fast you really are. Lu Ying sneered coldly, snapping his fingers. The sky was instantly filled with countless gray-black shadows, converging towards Mu Chen, their attack range spanning 1,000 feet. The sheer force was terrifying. Once Lu Ying made his move, he revealed the formidable strength gained after overcoming the tribulation of the physical body, which put some pressure on Mu Chen. This opponent was indeed tricky. The gray-black shadows filled the sky, and each one was sharp as a sword's edge, but with a more sinister aura, making it impossible for anyone to underestimate them. Mu Chen took a deep breath, his hands coming together as black flames of spiritual energy soared into the sky. With a resonant bell sound, it transformed into a massive black light tower, enveloping Mu Chen's body within. Clang! Clang! The myriad shadows bombarded the black light tower, causing it to tremble slightly, leaving white marks on its surface. However, the defensive power of the tower was astonishing. Even after enduring such intense attacks, it showed no signs of collapsing. This situation surprised many of the strong cultivators watching the battle. Clearly, they hadn't expected Mu Chen to completely block all of Lu Ying's attacks. Such a feat was beyond even the late heaven-reaching stage cultivators. This young man from the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy was indeed exceptional. Lu Ying's expression darkened, his eyes flickering with murderous intent. The repeated failure to defeat Mu Chun had clearly made him lose some face. In the sky, the black light tower slowly dispersed, revealing Mu Chen once again, now looking down from above at Lu Ying. Coldness surged in his black eyes. Relying only on speed and turtle-like defenses, no one will ever acknowledge you're standing here, Lu Ying said, his voice icy. Mu Chen sneered, not wanting to waste words. His hands suddenly formed a seal, and at that moment, his spiritual energy erupted without reservation. As the seal changed, a vast starry sky appeared behind him. Roar! As the starry sky emerged, figures of the white tiger, black tortoise, and vermilion bird manifested within it. Each beast exuded tremendous waves of spiritual energy. Oh, so you finally plan to make a move? Lu Ying raised an eyebrow and smirked indifferently. But if this is all you've got, I suggest you spare yourself the embarrassment. Is that so? Mu Chun smiled coldly, his expression chilling as he formed another mysterious fist seal. How about this? Roar! A thunderous dragon roar echoed from deep within the starry sky, as boundless spiritual energy violently coalesced. Everyone watched in shock as a massive cyan dragon, formed entirely of spiritual energy, coiled through the starry sky, exuding an overwhelming sense of pressure that spread across the world. It was like a true divine dragon had descended upon them. The four deities' constellation canon, Azure Dragon Divine Seal. Roar! The dragon's roar shook the heavens, and the enormous cyan dragon coiled in the sky, releasing an incredible aura. That scene was so awe-inspiring, it felt as though a true divine dragon had appeared, sending a chill through countless onlookers. On the second layer, Xia Yuran, Dong Yuan, and the others looked on with wide eyes, their expressions stiffening in shock. Mu Chen's attack had created such a threat that they could feel it as well. Emo Xingtian also looked up, gazing at the cyan dragon in the starry sky. His brow furrowed slightly, and for the first time, a flicker of emotion appeared in his usually deadpan eyes. He muttered to himself, such a powerful divine technique, to imitate even the fluctuations of a true sacred azure dragon. In the arena, Lu Ying's face darkened further as he watched this scene. This Mu Chun was indeed troublesome. Despite being only at the early heaven-reaching stage, his methods were endless. This feeling only intensified the killing intent in Lu Ying's heart. Mu Chun was even younger than them, and if he were allowed to cultivate for another year or two, as Xia Yuran said, he would surely surpass them, leaving them far behind. This was something Lu Ying, who lacked broad-mindedness, could not accept. So, it was better to eliminate this talented youth here and now. Lu Ying, try taking one of my moves. From above, Mu Chen shouted coldly. Behind him, for giant beast figures in the starry sky emanated incredible energy fluctuations. He stepped forward and formed a fist seal with both hands, shouting loudly, "For God's seal!" Roar! The four beast figures in the starry sky howled to the heavens before breaking through the stars, transforming into four massive beams of light, each a different color, and shooting across the sky. With overwhelming momentum, they descended directly toward Lu Ying, their powerful spiritual energy waves causing the faces of the strong cultivators on the third level, like the Qing Hu, to change drastically. They could never block this attack. No one expected Mu Chun to have such a hidden move. No wonder he dared to ascend to the second level and challenge the top young talents of the North Tsang continent. The four beams of light descended with such force that Lu Ying's face grew increasingly grim. He sneered coldly and said, "You think you can defeat me? You're still too young." As soon as his words fell, Lu Ying stomped his foot violently, sending a surge of spiritual energy sweeping outward. He roared, "Shadow Divine Art, Heaven Binding Shadow." Whoosh! A terrifying amount of spiritual energy gathered above Lu Ying, transforming into a massive gray shadow about 1,000 feet in size. This shadow spread out, as if even the sky was being covered, absorbing all the light around it. Whoosh! The gray shadow surged upward like the arm of a demon, then clashed with the four beams of light that were coming at him. Boom, boom, boom. Deafening explosions of spiritual energy echoed in the sky. Each time a violent spiritual shockwave came, the gray-black shadow spun and absorbed the impact, like a barrier that none of the attacks could break through. Himph, my shadow divine art can absorb attacks. Do you think you can break through it? Dream on. Lu Ying sneered. Mu Chen's eyes flickered with cold light. His fist seal changed again, and a low shout rang out in his heart. Explosion! Boom! The moment the word explosion rang in his mind, the 4 beams of light burst into blinding brilliance, rising like the sun. They exploded violently, unleashing a torrent of spiritual energy like a flood, sweeping over the massive gray-black shadow. The shadow spun wildly, emitting light as it tried to absorb the powerful shockwave. But it was clear that this violent spiritual energy had surpassed its absorption limit. The gray-black shadow brightened, losing its eerie, shadow-like appearance. Lu Ying's expression darkened. Boom! When the gray-black shadow reached its peak brightness, it exploded with a loud bang, shattering into countless gray-black light particles that scattered across the sky. Countless light points rained down, covering the heavens. Lu Ying's expression darkened even further. This damned kid had even broken through his heaven-binding shadow. He knew that this attack, even against someone of the same level, would be troublesome, but Mu Chen had shattered it completely. But let's see how many times you can challenge me. Lu Ying's eyes were cold. No matter how many tricks Mu Chen had, he was still at the early heaven-reaching stage, while Lu Ying had surpassed the tribulation. He would simply crush Mu Chen with the overwhelming power of his spiritual energy. Whoosh! Just as Lu Ying's eyes grew colder, the countless light points before him were suddenly torn apart. A ghostly figure shot out, fingers curved, releasing a chilling force as it stabbed directly toward Lu Ying's throat. Seeking death. Lu Ying saw that Mu Chen dared to charge at him, and he laughed menacingly, throwing a punch toward Mu Chen's fingers. However, just as Lu Ying's punch was about to strike, he suddenly felt a chill down his spine, his pupils contracting sharply. He saw that one of Mu Chen's fingers had turned pitch black, exuding a dangerous aura. Lu Ying, being a person of deep scheming, immediately felt a surge of unease. His eyes flashed with a sense of danger, and with a loud roar, he stomped his foot on the ground, halting his offensive. At the same time, his figure flickered like a shadow, swiftly retreating. You little brat, trying to play tricks on me? How naive. Lu Ying sneered. Mu Chen's black fingers seemed to contain some kind of deadly poison, but he wasn't Wu Tong. He wouldn't fall for Mu Chen's trap so easily. Besides, judging by the current situation, it seemed Mu Chen's move could only be used in close combat. Mu Chen's black eyes locked onto the retreating Lu Ying, as if he could see right through his thoughts. The corner of his mouth curled up into a mocking smile. Black thunder poison finger. He curled a single finger and pointed it into the air. Instantly, a thick black mist surged from his finger, followed by a burst of black light. In the next moment, Mu Chen's finger trembled, and a black beam, no thicker than his thumb, shot out from his fingertip. Hiss, hiss. As the black beam zipped through the air, the surrounding air exploded into white mist, leaving behind a faint black streak, as though it had corroded the space itself. The black beam was incredibly fast. In the blink of an eye, it appeared in front of Lu Ying. His face shifted in shock, and with a furious shout, he threw a punch, unleashing a torrent of spiritual energy in an attempt to block the seemingly insignificant black beam. Hiss, hiss. However, the black beam ruthlessly charged through the raging spiritual energy, corroding it as it passed. In the blink of an eye, the defense was breached, and the beam slammed into Lu Ying's fist. Lu Ying's figure froze, and he stared in horror at his hand, where the black poison quickly began to spread up his arm. This poison is so domineering. Lu Ying's pupils contracted. He immediately clenched his hand, and a jade vial appeared in his palm. He tossed a few pills into his mouth and shouted lowly. His spiritual energy surged, and his entire arm exploded with blinding light. Under his full pressure, the black poison spread was immediately suppressed, and after a few moments, it was pushed back. In the end, The poison was contained in his palm, surrounded by a barrier of spiritual energy, halting its invasion of his body. However, his hand was now effectively useless, temporarily crippled. Mu Chen observed this scene, his brows furrowing slightly. Lu Ying was indeed powerful. He had actually managed to suppress the Black Thunder poison. Once he left, the Shadow Chamber of Commerce would definitely send a supreme powerhouse to help him remove the poison. What a pity! He had finally found an opportunity to strike, but he hadn't been able to cripple this guy. It seemed the Black Thunder poison wasn't invincible. When someone's strength reached a certain level, it could be suppressed. Mu Chen, Lu Ying, now controlling the poison's spread, glared at him with a twisted face, his eyes burning with rage. He had personally stepped in today, but instead of kicking Mu Chen out of the second layer, he had ended up poisoned, causing his arm to be temporarily incapacitated. This was a major loss of combat ability. Now, with this situation, he still had to contend for the baptism power. Being temporarily disabled by Mu Chen was a heavy blow to him. His fury boiled over, and he wished nothing more than to tear Mu Chen to pieces. Mu Chen, seeing his enraged expression, couldn't help but smile faintly. I wonder if I have the right to stand here now? I'll kill you. Lu Ying roared, unable to restrain himself any longer. He intended to strike and kill Mu Chen without hesitation. Mu Chen sneered, his finger turning pitch black again. Lu Ying halted in his tracks, glaring at Mu Chen's finger through gritted teeth. His eyes flashed with wariness. This poison was too domineering. Even he couldn't expel it from his body and could only suppress it. If he got hit again, it would only make things worse. But right now, he couldn't afford to disregard Mu Chen. After all, he still had to fight for the baptism power. Lu Ying's face flickered with indecision. After a moment, he clenched his teeth, giving Mu Chen a venomous glare before slowly retreating. At this moment, below, countless powerful figures watched this scene, all gasping in astonishment. When they looked at the handsome young man, their eyes were filled with disbelief. This guy actually managed to force Lu Ying back? With just the strength of the early heaven-reaching stage, he actually forced back someone who had survived the physical body tribulation? This kid is terrifying. Mu Chen, however, paid no attention to those gazes. Instead, he walked back to Xia Yuren's side amidst the increasingly astonished and complicated expressions of those on the second-layer platform. He smiled at her as she slightly parted her red lips. Xia Yuren stared at the young man before her, her beautiful eyes wide with surprise. Just as she was about to speak, her expression suddenly changed. She looked up and saw a brilliant light suddenly erupt from the massive light sphere in the sky. The light descended, as if some mysterious power was about to land. Seeing this, Xia Yuren's eyes lit up in excitement.